Hey, do you know where your favorite futuristic ice cream Dipping Dots is headquartered here in the U.S.? That's right, Paducah, Kentucky. And today on Transit Unplugged, we're heading there to talk with one of Transit's rising stars. I'm your host, Paul Comfort, and I'm joined today by Jeremi Bumpus, Executive Director of the Paducah Area Transit System, or PATS as it is known. In just 3 years in the transit industry, and only 2 as Executive Director, Jeremi is already leading a transformation from a ride-hail-only rural system to moving toward launching more than 200 fixed-route bus stops. PATS is redefining what mobility looks like for a growing small urban region. We'll explore how Jeremi and his team are preparing for big events like the American Quilters Society Quilt Week, and what it means to scale up service in a close-knit community, and how innovation and energy are driving the future of transit in Paducah. Hey, if you like what you hear today, don't forget to follow us on your favorite platform and leave us a review. It helps more people discover the voices of tomorrow's transit leaders like Jeremi Bumpus. Great to have Jeremi Bumpus with me today. He is the Executive Director of Paducah Transit Authority, and I guess you're calling in from your office in Paducah, Kentucky, huh?
I am. Straight from the office.
That's great, man. Well, good to see you again. Jeremi and I were just together at the Trip Spark Ignite conference a week or 2 ago, and we connected up, and he's got such a great operation, a great story. I wanted to get him on the podcast. So tell us some about your service, Jeremi, where you guys are at, like geographically, if people can position where Paducah is. Everybody's heard of Paducah, Kentucky, but I don't know if people know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, so Paducah, Kentucky, we're located in Kentucky, but we're in the far western part of Kentucky. So we're right on the border of Illinois. It's about 5 minutes north of us, and about 30 minutes west is the border of Missouri. So we're tucked off in the far western part of Kentucky.
And about how big is Paducah population-wise?
So I always like to say, if you look it up on Google, it'll say Paducah is about 27,000 people. However, that's just within the city limits. The actual city of Paducah, we're in McCracken County, Kentucky. The only city in McCracken County, Kentucky is Paducah.
Okay.
And that consists of about 67,000 people. But you have county versus city, but it's all Paducah. So we're a community of about 67,000 people.
That's great, man. So tell me some about your service.
Paducah Transit Authority, we do business as Paducah Area Transit System because we serve 4 counties in Western Kentucky. We have 2 modes of transportation. We do fixed route and paratransit. Of course, those in the transit world, we call it demand and response. But for those outside the transit world, I always like to say scheduled transportation. That seems to be a little bit better to understand. So those are our 2 modes. And again, we are the largest public transportation provider in Western Kentucky.
Very good.
So again, cover 4 counties along with 2 other smaller public transit agencies.
Gotcha. And let's talk about your journey. How'd you find your way into public transportation, and what has it been like leading PATS and now in your 2nd year as Executive Director?
Wow, good question. What I found in transit is most people who are in transit never intended on being in transit. It kind of just happened.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, that's what happened. I spent probably 10 years in higher education. And my wife and I, we spent some time in North Carolina. We lived in Tennessee. We relocated to Kentucky, and Paducah is our hometown. And at the time, I was working for a higher education institution here in Paducah, and then COVID hit.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, I had a lot of time on my hands, like most people, a lot of time to sit, think, and reflect. And I was just at a point in life where I wanted to do something different. And so I had known the previous director. I'd met him while I was in college. We reconnected when I moved to Paducah, and, we hadn't spoken for years. But when I moved to Paducah, we reconnected, and sure enough, he was retiring. And so essentially he was looking for someone to take over for him. And so he asked me if I would be interested. And again, I tell people this, I wasn't guaranteed anything. He said, "Hey, I'm going to be retiring. We're looking for an assistant director, and hopefully this person will take over once I retire in 2 years." He said, "You can apply, and we'll go from there." I applied. I interviewed with the board of directors. I was hired as the assistant director, and that's how I began my first job in transit was as assistant director.
Okay. And what did you do in that role? What was your function?
We're a small transit agency, so what I found was the executive director wore many hats. He didn't just push papers.
Yeah.
So I spent a year and a half as assistant director learning not only under the current executive director, but I spent time with the operations manager. I spent time with the accounting department, HR director, office manager, our mechanics, pretty much learning all the ins and outs of transit and our services. So I did everything that you can think of that goes on in a transit agency. So I spent a year and a half.
So coming from outside of the traditional transit world, kind of what fresh perspectives do you think you brought into PATS, and how has that impacted the way your team approaches service and innovation?
So I'm 37 years old. I came in, I was 35. And it's funny, the younger kids think I'm old, but everyone here thinks I'm very young.
Yeah.
Our average age here at the agency is 54. So I came in as the young guy, and a millennial. So essentially, when I walked into the building, my generation were really big on technology and using technology to make life easier. I do that in my personal life. So that was one of the things that I noticed here at our agency. We needed updated technology, and we needed to update some of our practices and things that we did just to make things more efficient. What I found is that people in agencies and businesses, sometimes they're used to the norm. Things have been away for so many years, so many decades, and hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't necessarily look at things that way. I'm always looking at, hey, how can we improve this, and how can we use the technology that's available to us to improve our services, things of that nature. So that's the perspective that I brought in. I think it was essentially my age and my experiences with technology, just kind of the way that I live my life. That helped me come in and kind of just see things and say, hey, maybe we could do this differently, or we can add this or change this to make things a little more efficient.
You know, I had the same experience when I started, Jeremy. I was a little bit younger than you. I was 22 when I started, and I was in a county about the size of yours, and I was the county's first transportation director. And I was just over there today meeting with them because we're going to be filming an episode of our TV show coming up soon there. And but I remember everybody that worked for me could have been my parents or my grandparents. And so it's a big deal when you come in like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's funny. I thought there would be some resistance to that when I came in, because again, when you get sometimes, and I've worked in other places where you come in as the young guy and the people that you're working with are old enough to be your parents or grandparents. And, you know, I've had resistance in the past, but coming here, I experienced none of that. Everyone
that's great, man.
Open arms. Now, some of the changes that were made, and everyone wasn't listening. But, you know, everyone working with open arms. And I think some of them really looked forward to some change. And hey, we're kind of looking for a fresh start and new ideas. And the current executive director at the time, still have a very, very good relationship with him. I have a lot of respect for him. He knew that. And he would say it publicly. He would say, hey, he would introduce me. He'd say, hey, this is Jeremy. This is the assistant director. He's the new young guy coming in with the new ideas. And I'm just going to turn it over to him and let him run.
Oh, that's nice.
And I really appreciate him. Yeah. Now he would joke and say, "Now you can't do this until I retire." But you know, he knew that I was going to come in and change some things, and he was all for it. He was very supportive.
What's the structure there? So you're a transit authority. Do you report to like a board of directors that are appointed, or work for the county government, city government?
Yeah. So the structure, we're a quasi government agency.
Okay.
So essentially, the Kentucky revised statutes allow municipalities to create a transit authority. So we're not owned or operated by the city or county government.
Okay.
County government, it's our board that governs and directs us, but that's the only tie we have to the city. So we're our own independent agency that has a governing body that's chosen by the city. So a lot of people here in this community who are unfamiliar with PATS, they always say, hey, well, I'm going to call the city. And I'm like, well, I communicate with the city very often. Right. And I'm like, we're our own standalone agency. We work very closely with the city, but our board is where it stops.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our structure. And then, of course, we report to FTA and our Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, which is our state transportation agency that provides us funding. So
gotcha. Yeah. Where do you get your funding from? Is it a combination? Who provides the most and all that stuff?
Well, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, which is the Office of Transportation and Delivery, they provide all of our funding. But we are going through a transition period, which is interesting.
Okay.
We are transitioning from rural to small urban. So we'll be receiving funding directly from FTA and from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, which makes for some interesting things. So
Yeah.
essentially two pots of money, which is great. But, we're not done with the process to become a direct recipient from FTA yet. Hopefully we'll be done with that this summer. But it's been kind of a learning curve.
So explain that process a little bit. It's an interesting time to switch from a rural to a small urban. Is it because the last census you had more people? Then explain how all that works, if you don't mind.
Yep. So the 2020 census data came out, and our urbanized area grew.
Okay.
So we surpassed 50,000 people, which I believe put us to the small urban category.
Yeah.
And a portion of that is in Illinois, which is right across the river from us. So, that triggered a bunch of different things, and it started receiving communication from FTA. And we started this process probably a year and a half ago, getting everything set up. And I didn't realize it. Yeah, I didn't realize it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
But will you end up with more money at the end?
That's still kind of undetermined.
Okay.
Because apparently after, and I'm going to speak in our transit language, fiscal year 23, which the feds, is October 1 to September 30th.
Right.
That's when the FTA dollars became available to us. We still have yet to access those because we haven't gone through the entire process yet. So essentially we have 2 years coming up on 3 years of money that we can access from FTA, but we're still being fully funded by the state of Kentucky. Once we're able to access that money, the state of Kentucky is going to reduce the amount of funding, but that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, I gotcha.
We're still kind of in limbo.
Yeah.
Until hopefully, this summer when we get an answer.
And what FTA region are you a part of?
4.
Okay, yeah.
Region 4.
And I understand that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think I don't think we've ever had a conversation about that before on the show. So it's good, a little bit of education for people how that works. When your census of your urban, what do they call that? Your consolidated metropolitan area statistical or something statistical area. When it grows above a certain amount, 50,000 and then 200,000, I think is the next one.
Right.
You end up in a different category, and the funding you get, the formula funding, which comes through the federal government, changes. It's actually a good primer for people as we think about reauthorization. So the federal government has their every 5 or 6 years they put out a reauthorization act. The last one was colloquially called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. And inside of that was our reauthorization, and funding went up dramatically for most of the categories, 40% in some categories. We were just in Washington recently talking with the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and they were talking about that. Now they've started the reauthorization process again for the next version, which will kick in at the end of 2026. So the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, their Highways and Transportation Subcommittee, is working on that. So it's all part of the formula funds that come out of Washington. And it's very important, isn't it, for systems like yours, right? For smaller systems, they rely on a lot of those funds.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, without those funds, obviously we wouldn't be able to operate. And then of course, we just, with limited resources, we don't receive any other funding. We receive a little bit of funding from our city of Paducah. Okay. And we're super grateful for those funds, but it's just enough. That's not even enough. It's not enough to cover the fuel.
Right. I got you.
Right. And outside of that, we don't have enough to, run our operations or sustain what we have going on. So we're heavily reliant on that funding, and I'm hoping, the way things look, we'll be okay. But I'm hoping that this process is done sooner rather than later.
How many employees do you have there?
So we're about 45 employees.
Okay,
45 employees. So yeah, and it's funny when I travel, to some that's large, and to some, it's minuscule. So I still feel extremely small, and I still feel understaffed. So I'm sure, a lot of other transit agencies feel the exact same way.
Yeah. What's your total annual budget?
So about $4 million.
Okay. Very good.
Yep,
that's great.
$4 million.
Hi, I'm Julie Gates, executive producer at Transit Unplugged. Thank you so much for listening. You may have noticed Transit Unplugged has a brand new logo and a refreshed look. After nearly a decade of telling Transit's greatest stories, We've made a number of upgrades to keep pace with the industry that's changing faster than ever. Whether you listen to Transit Unplugged Podcast for executive conversations, watch Transit Unplugged TV for food, travel, and transit adventures, or get your headlines with the Transit Unplugged News Minute, we're committed to telling transit's story in bigger and better ways. Stay tuned. There's even more coming later this year. Thanks for being on this journey with us, and thanks for listening to Transit Unplugged.
So you've also been working on improving your fixed route system, right? Can you walk us through what that's happening there and what that'll mean for riders in Paducah?
Yeah. So when I came to PATS, as we refer to it, I did not realize that our fixed route system did not have bus stops. And up until last week at Ignite, I met another transit agency in South Dakota that has a similar fixed route. They operate on a hail system just like we do. And so for anyone that doesn't know, a hail system is anywhere along the route, someone can stand and hail down the bus.
Wave their hand, right?
Yep, just wave their hand. As long as it's in a safe area.
Right.
When I came on, I said, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I learned over time, for us, it caused a lot of issues. It's inefficient. It's dangerous. People who come into the community who aren't familiar with the system didn't know where to go, because if you're coming from other cities, whether small, large, or medium sized, they have bus stops. And so when you want to access a fixed route, you typically find where the bus stops are through some app or a map or something, and you catch the bus to get you where you need to go. Well, that wasn't the case here in Paducah. So I decided once, the previous director retired, and I explained his plan to him. He's like, hey, you got it. I want you to be successful. Do it. I said, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to hit the ground running. So as a part of us changing or transitioning to a 5307, which is, the small urban, as you're probably familiar, an MPO was formed, a Metropolitan Planning Organization in our area. And through that MPO, the MPO received some additional funding, and it was decided amongst that exec board that funding can be used for us to conduct a transit study, to study our fixed routes and essentially to make them more efficient. And this was this is the first thing that needed to happen before we put in the bus stops. So I worked with I'm on the exec board, but essentially I asked for that funding. They allowed me to use it. We worked with a local consulting firm. Actually, it's a national consulting firm that has an office here in Paducah. Okay. We started that transit study in September of last year. We pretty much finished it up, and we determined where those stops should be. We're almost done. I'm working with our local government here to get those bus stops made and implemented. But on the flip side, I also, and this is where the technology piece comes in. I said, well, hey, we need some sort of technology or app that allows people to see the buses in real time and track the buses. We know this technology exists. It's all over the country. We don't have it here, and I'm going to make that happen. So that's where TripSpark came in, and worked with TripSpark, purchased the street software and the MyRide app, and we're working through that now, and we're about 90% complete on that. So we're looking to launch the app and the bus stop signs and all of that. I'm looking to launch that all by July 1. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. It's going to be a complete game changer for our community. So,
you don't know how many bus stops you're going to get yet because your study's not done, right?
Oh, well, the study's done. Yeah. We're 207 bus stops.
Really? From nothing to 200?
Yes. From nothing to 200. So designated stops. Again, it's going to be a complete game changer for our city in terms of, economic development, the morale of the passengers, just the reputation that PATS has, and it also cut down on calls that we receive here in the office. So our staff, that's just one less thing that they have to do. Yeah. And then you kind of put some of the power back into the hands of the passengers. Hey, they can plan out their trips. They can set reminders on their phone to say, hey, I catch this bus at this location every day to get to work. Now I don't necessarily need to call. I can just plan it and receive a text notification when that bus is on its way. And I can set that to remind me every day when I need to catch this bus at this location. So again, it's a game changer for us. And I'm
that's wonderful, because people then know where to be, what time. The bus will definitely be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great, man. Switching topics slightly here. Paducah has a unique cultural identity? When people think about Paducah, Kentucky, I mean, it's in my mind. What are you known for?
Two things. Of course, you've heard of Dippin' Dots, correct?
Yes.
Did you know that they're headquartered here in Paducah?
Dippin' Dots ice cream is headquartered in Paducah. No, I did not know that. Wow.
Yes. Yep. So that's one, which is a cool fact. Actually, I told someone there at Ignite, there was a Dippin' Dots stand there. And I said, hey, that's headquartered in Paducah where I live. And I had no idea. And also, the National Quilt Museum is located in Paducah. And so every year, the American Quilter Society holds an annual quilt week. And you have thousands of people that travel from all over the country that are really into quilting and the history of it and all these different things. They travel here to Paducah, and it's great for our economy. The influx of money and tourism goes up, and it's something that we all look forward to this year. And we play a really vital role in that. Our role is kind of transitioned and changed over the years. Again, that's one of the things we're known for is Quilt Week. So Dippin' Dots.
Yeah. So what do you? Yeah, that's great. What does your service actually do? You say you play an important role. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So at one point, we provided all transportation for Quilt Week. So we would run our fixed routes, and we would run additional vehicles to transport all of the quilters, is what we call them.
Yeah.
All over the city. And over time, there were some, and this was before my time, but there were some things that came up, and essentially we had to reduce our service. So now what we're doing is we have a couple of trolleys that we run. We start that halfway through the week, and we run it through the weekend, and it's a complimentary trolley. So there's no cost associated with it. We work with our local visitors bureau and the convention center and the quilt museum, and we call them our Paducah ambassadors. They hold this meeting. We all work together, and we coordinate this transportation. And again, it's great for the community. It's great for us, and people just love to see that trolley and those trolleys running around our city, knowing that, hey, when you see those trolleys at this time of year, it's Quilt Week. So
yeah. That's awesome, man. So one of the cool things about that I have found about being in a smaller agency is you get to wear a lot of hats. Most people in these jobs don't complain about it because it's fun. I mean, I've got a chapter in my upcoming book called "Do Not Despise the Day of Small Beginnings," a great quote, from the good book. And I started out my career in a small transit system and got to wear all the hats. But you do a lot, right? You're the head of media and marketing for your own agency. And as
Correct.
such, how do you spread the word about what's working for you guys, and how's it working so far?
Yeah, so a couple of things. When I started, there was no marketing, and we didn't have any media. The extent of our marketing and media was our local newspaper.
Okay.
Which again, it kind of speaks to the generational differences between myself and the former director. I've come in, I've started a social media pages, which they're not as active as they were when I was assistant director. I was a little more active with those, but as a director, I've kind of tapered back a little bit. But our social media pages, and then using the local media. So again, still using newspaper because I understand we have a large population of our community that still reads a newspaper. Using the local news station, and then one of the key things that I've done is I've worked with TripSpark and Message Point Media. I've added a kiosk outside of our building, which again, for some agencies around the country, that's a complete norm. It's a total game changer for us because then we essentially have a 24-hour kiosk that is outside of our building that we can use for advertising, we can use for announcements, and we can use for things of that nature. Also, with us using the app, My Ride, we'll be able to put things out to all passengers using that using the app. So that allows us to market and reach a broader audience quicker, and it's cheaper. So that's one of the things that I do. And I have a couple of people on my team, that assist with that. But again, director, we wear many hats. So
that's right,
when
man.
it comes to marketing, it's like, hey, I'm the go-to. And I'm not above it. Things have to happen. We all are busy, but it's what I signed up for. It's a job.
That's wonderful. Well, when you're not leading Pats, I know you're into fitness. I met you and your wife there in at the conference and at the ball game, and you like to travel and spend time with loved ones. How do those passions recharge you as a leader, and do they influence your approach to work?
They do. The way that they recharge me as a leader is I'm really big in compartmentalization. I absolutely believe in work-life balance, and that doesn't look the same for everyone. So I always tell people, hey, when I'm not working, I'm not working. Right? When I'm off, I'm off. Now, that doesn't mean I won't answer my phone. It doesn't mean I won't respond, but I love to enjoy time away from work. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me to decompress and it allows me to think, get new, fresh ideas, think how I'm going to do this. What do I need to do tomorrow? It kind of just resets me. So if I go home and I'm able to work out, or I can spend some time with my kids, and I can just not necessarily think of work, when I get back into the office, I'm fresh.
Yeah.
And for me, that helps eliminate, or it helps keep me from feeling burnt out. Because when you're running 24/7 and it's just work, it's really, really easy to get burnt out, especially in transit, in a small transit agency where you're wearing many hats. Because there are going to be days where you're frustrated, things are not going to go your way. And you know this working in transit. It's never if something is going to happen. It's just when.
That's right.
That's
really good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Something's going to happen. No, something's going to happen. And,
that's right.
I never want to allow myself to be jaded. So it's good to just step away, compartmentalize, and hey, if I'm in the gym and I'm working out, that's all I'm doing. If I'm playing with my kids, I'm playing with my kids. If my wife and I are on a date somewhere, or we're on a date, I'm not thinking about work. Now, if they call me, if something work comes up, I'm going to take care of it, but I just compartmentalize. And I like to live my life that way. So.
Very good. And looking ahead, last question, what's your vision for PATS? Where do you think it'll be in 2 or 3 years from now under your leadership?
2 to 3 years from now, it's a good question. Where do I see PATS? I see PATS just continuing to improve our services, looking at technology, how we can use it to improve our services to make them more efficient. I will say this, one of the things that recently I've come across is some AI software that will allow us to monitor maintenance issues on our vehicles in real time and not necessarily wait for a breakdown. So as technology improves, it evolves. Those are the things that I'm always looking into, talking with my team about, getting new ideas, and not just myself. I have an open door policy, and I communicate with my team and our employees daily. And when people have ideas or thoughts on something, I never shoot them down immediately. I always hear them out. And people do it often. Hey, Jeremy, what do you think about this? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Or, hey, yeah, we can do that, but we need to find the money for it or the funding. I see PATS just continuing to move forward, improve our services, and trying to catch up to some of the other transit agencies in the country that have a little more resources. I don't want people to look at PATS and say, okay, well, PATS is functioning like it's 2005. No, I want people to look at PATS and say, hey, PATS is functioning like the times we're in. They have the technology, they have the resources that they need to provide the best service that they can provide.
That's awesome, man. Great vision. I love it. And this has been a great conversation. Very informative for people to see a smaller mid-size agency and how you operate. When you get to your new fixed routes and you implement the software, seriously, send me another note and give me an update on it. We'll let folks know how it's going.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeremi Bumpus, for being our guest today. Best wishes as you continue to lead Paducah Transit Authority as your executive director. It was great meeting you. I hope to see you again sometime at another TripSpark conference.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Transit Unplugged podcast. We're so glad you're here. My name is Julie Gates. I'm the executive producer of the show, and our goal is to create programs that promote the great things going on in the transit industry by providing you with behind-the-scenes access with industry executive leadership so we can work together to find innovative industry solutions. We would love to have you be a part of the Transit Unplugged community by having you sign up for our newsletter. Head to the show notes to find the link. Thanks for listening to Transit Unplugged with Paul Comfort, our favorite transit evangelist, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in.